This episode of Void Signal is sponsored by Dark Force Fest. Visit darkforcefest.com or search Dark Force Fest anywhere to learn more about America's premier dark music festival experience. You can also find festival-related episodes of Void Signal anywhere podcasts haunt. Visit voidsignal.net to help support the creation of more ad-free Void Signal. And welcome to Void Signal. I am your host, Brian Prime. I hope you're well. I wanted to make you aware that if you are going to Dark Force Fest in May, stop by for Void Signal Live. I'm going to be hosting trivia. There's going to be a chat. We will have prizes, and we will make some memories with strangers. And if you miss me in New Jersey at Dark Force Fest, you'll have another chance at the end of May in Seattle when Void Signal Live will happen again at Mechanismus Festival. I can't believe it either, but they have decided to let me do my thing again in front of a bunch of people. So I hope to see you at either one. You can also catch this week's guest performing at Dark Force Fest on Saturday. This is a chat with Eric Gottesman of Everything Goes Cold, but Eric has been around the block, so to speak, performing with Caustic, Psyclon Nine, Deathline International, and when he isn't making music, he's working for Santa Monica Studios, known for the God of War franchise. I had a chat with Eric late last year, and that is what you'll hear next. But before our time is at an end, I will once again mention that Void Signal is ad-free and powered by a person. For $2 per month, you can help support independent media via the Void Signal Project. And in exchange, you get access to hours of series, special episodes, longer cuts, early access, a movie club, all kinds of things. Just visit voidsignal.net or patreon.com/voidsignal and slip me a couple of bucks for being your entertainment for however long you decide to listen. Thanks for your consideration, and until next time, stay safe, stay loud, and take care.
Hey, how you doing?
Hello. How's it going?
Can you hear me okay? Is the level all right?
I can hear you. You just sound robot-y. Like...
Oh, there we go. Is that better?
You still sound like a robot. Like...
Let me leave and come right
Are you actually a robot, though?
Okay, let's try this again. Is that any better?
Yes, much better. Yeah, you sound like a normal person again. So, which is deceiving, I know, but...
It's all an elaborate ruse.
Yeah, I figured as much. I'm more or less ready if you are. I just got home from running errands and shopping.
You're actually 4 minutes early. So.
Okay, fair enough. I try to be 15 minutes early in case people need, like, how's my levels and want to test stuff or whatever, but you know what you're doing, supposedly.
Anyway, yeah, I'm good to go.
Okay, cool. All right, we will go ahead and get started. I'm trying to do this thing where I do intros and it's all professional and people know who's talking and everything. So we'll try and do that. So welcome to Void Signal. I'm your host, Brian Prime. I'm joined for this episode by Eric Gottesman from a lot of things. Like you just are sort of a scene staple at this point. Like everybody's had a turn with the Gottesman, it seems. How's it going?
Pretty good, pretty good. It's been a long and frustrating work day, but I'm now not working, and now I just get to sit here and talk about myself, which is always fun. So
excellent. Everybody loves that. So if somebody were to say, who's Eric Gottesman, what would you tell them?
Well, assuming that we're talking about music, which we are, my band is Everything Goes Cold, and Everything Goes Cold has been going since 2008. So it's been a while, but a lot of people know me from other things. I've been a member of Ayria almost since the beginning, and we have been touring a lot lately. So a lot of people may have seen me up on stage with Jennifer. I've been with Ayria since 2005 with a few breaks. I've also been with Caustic for a pretty good chunk of that time. And I was in Psyclon 9 for a long time. I was one of the founding members. And yeah, I played in a lot of other bands, even just in the last few years. I play a lot of shows with DSTR, with Daniel Meyer. I got to play a couple shows with him with How Job, which was really cool. And yeah, I could go on listing bands, but those are some of the big ones, I guess.
Yeah.
Glass Apple Bonsai. I left out Glass Apple Bonsai. That's important. And that with Daniel Blasco. And yeah.
You also did a collaboration with Kurt Larson. Is that right?
I did, yes. Kurt lives here in the San Francisco area. I've known him for a long time. And we spent a really ridiculously long time working on that one track, but I'm really happy with how it came out. That came out as a single a couple of years ago. I think we released it as Larson Gottesman.
Yes, it is Larson Gottesman. I bring it up because as a big Information Society fan, that song was like one of my most played the year that it came out. It has been such a great staple. Said so many poignant things, and Kurt has such a great voice. Great track. I wanted to at least mention it here because, like, yes, you've done a lot of things, but like that track and working with Kurt Harland, I think is worth mentioning. Like sort of a peek out of our little scene a little bit.
Well, yeah, many years ago, there was a time period during which Kurt was not part of Information Society. And Paul and Jim were doing shows at the Information Society with, what was that guy's name? The other singer was on synthesizer. But Kurt was asked to do a show during that time. And he was like, well, I can't really do a show because I'm not part of Information Society right now. This was for a game developer conference, and Kurt and I both work in the game industry. Long story short, we wound up playing a show as not Information Society. It was a one-off thing. We called ourselves 415 Sound Covenant. We had a good time working together, and we also realized that our voices worked pretty nicely together. A little while later, Kurt was working on a track with Steven Siebold from Hate Department, who, as you may know, previously did the album Don't Be Afraid by Information Society.
My favorite NSOC album. Anybody listening, you've not heard it. It long tracks that are worth your patience. Great record. Yeah. Anyway, go on.
Yeah, anyway, he started working on the track with Steven, and Steven dropped off, and I wound up sort of taking over. So, yeah, that's the origin of that track. And like it did take us a ridiculously long time. Originally, we were going to do more, but then we were like, well, if we keep trying to do more music, nothing's ever going to come out, so we better just put out a single.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. And a great single. Sorry, I keep changing it. It's Gottesman in theory, but like honestly, even within my own family, we don't pronounce it totally consistently, so it doesn't really matter that much. Okay, all right, very well. I'll just continue saying whatever I wish. Then is what this sounds. Okay, so you've done a bunch of stuff, like had your fingers in a lot of stuff, but I did see that you mentioned that Everything Goes Cold has been sort of resurrected and kind of lives again. Was listening to that just before we went on the single Nadir. Am I saying that right?
I pronounce it Nadir, which is apparently more commonly the UK pronunciation. And in the US, Nadir is an acceptable pronunciation. However, that just makes everybody think of Ralph Nader, which we couldn't stop talking about while we were recording it, because the artwork was done. We were like 3/4 of the way through recording it, and my producer was like, wait, what is this name? What is the name of this song? And I tell him, and he's like Nadir, like Ralph Nader. And that was not an intended impression. So I've been saying Nadir, and hopefully that'll be right enough for everybody.
I mean, that is I mean, that's how I would say it anyway. It sounds better to me. It sounds right. If you say Nader, I'm going to go type it in on something and type in Nader. Yeah. But if you say Nadir, I'm going to be like, it's probably a fucking I.
The word doesn't actually occur in the song, so it doesn't matter that much.
Right. Very well. Aside from that, it actually is a really good song. It was great. I enjoyed my time with it. I listened to the whole thing, including the edit. It was fun. It reminded me of Pretty Hate Machine era kind of schnalzy kind of a sound kind of stuff. What prompted you to resurrect this project?
Well, it was never exactly gone. What happened was we were sort of starting to work on new stuff and starting to work on a new album in 2019. And then we played, I think, 2 shows in 2019 just locally, and we're sort of starting to sketch out how we were going to do the new album. We were trying to do it as more of, all 4 of us in a room working together as a band rather than just me writing something and then asking other people to add stuff. And then the pandemic hit, and we just weren't able to make no matter how hard you tried to do stuff during the pandemic over Zoom calls and things like this, even if everything was perfect, it oftentimes just didn't work out because people's brains were so, I think, addled by the situation. And so if you were to go to my GitHub, I actually have a thing up there to run a cloud instance of a piece of software that keeps musicians in sync over multiple locations, which was my big pandemic project. We never actually used it. When things settled down again, I didn't really find myself writing. I guess it was Dark Force Festival in New Jersey earlier this year, and I ran into Jim Simonik, who runs Distortion Productions, and he was getting on my case to do a track for the upcoming Electronic Saviors compilation. I don't generally, at this point in my life, find myself listening to compilations. So I know other people love this series and it does really well. And when I look at our Spotify numbers or whatever, like the songs that we've had on Electronic Saviors in the past are at the top. But I was just sort of like, well, I'm trying to get something done, but I don't know. And I was being really wishy-washy about it. And he kind of bullied me into it, which he's pretty good at doing. So I was like, okay, we'll get something together. In the process of doing that, we were also sort of talking about, we weren't signed to Metropolis anymore. And I didn't know how I'd release anything if I did it on my own. Eventually, we hammered out something for me to release with Distortion. And I had this song that I'd been sort of the earliest file that I've got from this song is from like 2017. I've been mucking around with it for that long. And one day I pulled up the file because I hadn't heard it in a while. And I was like, this sucks. And I completely started the whole thing over from scratch with just the barest ideas of it intact. It's like 20 BPM faster than the original. And it's not even that fast as it is. The original is like really slow and draggy. And I sort of slammed it out really fast, and I got the guys to contribute a little bit of stuff to it. But at some point while I was working on it, I remembered Matija Simovic, an old friend of mine, has this great studio in Los Angeles. At some point, he'd been like, oh, we should really record something together someday. That was like, 10 years ago. And now he's kind of a big deal, and he's done all this amazing stuff with Boy Harsher and Sacred Skin, which is one of my favorite bands currently, his own band, Inhalt, Patriarchy. One of the reasons that it had taken me so long to put anything out was that I'm not listening to a lot of the music that I think of as being the generation that I come out of these days. I'm not listening to a lot of stuff that is strongly connected to the sort of slightly post-future pop and terror EBM era that I consider us to be most strongly part of. Most of what I'm listening to is this new wave of dark wave and EBM stuff. It feels more present to me now and more relevant to me now. And I don't really know how to write like that because I've spent my whole life writing the same kind of thing. So basically, I went to Matija and I was like, I want to do this song with you, and I want you to figure out how it can still be us, but that it can also fit at least a little bit into the culture and the music that I'm actually listening to right now. And that's what we came up with. It was a great time. He's an incredible producer. Really, it was just an amazing experience being in that studio. And also, we've been friends for like 20 years. So it was definitely a more laid back experience than it might have been if it was somebody else.
Great single, great track. And I do sort of find myself like, as far as the sort of quick commentary, like just a little bit of a side, because you're kind of touched on a little bit, and it's something I'd kind of like to talk about. But like some more modern EBM kind of stuff that I've heard these days, like it does resonate with me a little bit harder. But I mean, I've seen its roots, and like, you know, we listened to what we had because it was all we had, right? Like we didn't have some of these, like, it's like a fresh take on like a familiar thing. And that's what I like. And that's what I sort of hear in this. And something that I like about it is that, like, I made the sort of Nine Inch Nails comparison, or early EBM, or early whatever you want to compare it to. I don't care. But it is just sort of a fresh iteration on that thing. And I think that fresh takes and updates in some places can go a long way. And I want to point to Hosiko's latest record or singles as using some newer production techniques. And it sounds really slick. And I take notice of it a little bit more versus sort of what I've come to expect, I guess. But it's an interesting sort of direction that things are going, I guess.
I'm intrigued by that comment about the new Hosiko. I haven't listened to anything by them in ages. I really, I strongly associate them with the Terror EBM period, especially since, of course, when I was in Psyclon 9, especially the early days, we played a bunch of shows with those guys. I think the last time I saw them, I was down in Mexico City playing with Grendel in 2015. I want to say that might have been a Dulce Liquido show rather than Hosiko. No, wait, that one was Hosiko. But I definitely associate them with that earlier period. So I'd really like to hear what they're doing with modern production techniques. That sounds great.
I recommend it because it was the same for me. It was just sort of like, I didn't kind of check in on what they were doing for a while because it was sort of, I guess when I did, it was kind of what I expected, right? Like kind of, okay, well, as expected, which isn't a bad thing. Like, just not my main flavor. But hearing it with like some freshness and a little bit more like better kind of production, not to speak disparagingly of their production or anything, but just some newer techniques, sounds a little more loud, more crisp. Yeah, I'm a big fan of helping push and evolve things. I love industrial music and I love EDM and stuff, but new directions. There's such good EDM and such good, interesting electronic genres popping up here and there and everywhere that it seems like, why would we just want to pick from this tree?
Whenever I think about EDM in the context of industrial music, I always immediately sort of think back to that period when dubstep got really popular and people in the industrial scene reacted so negatively to it. I wasn't spending a whole lot of time listening to it, but at the same time, I was like, man, this is like harsh, aggressive electronic music that has permeated popular culture in a way that industrial music hadn't managed in, decades. Felt like something we should have all been excited about. And, there are a few bands like Rabbit Junk is the big one that really grabbed, I think, the stuff that was cool about that form and pulled it in. And then eventually, years later, we got a lot of it. But I'm not out there listening to EDM. And the fact is that a lot of cultural things surrounding it are very much not appealing to me. And I wouldn't expect to be appealing to most people.
Sure.
But there's also a lot of, cool production and cool things to learn from that stuff. And it would be a shame if we all just toss that sort of thing out entirely.
Yeah, a bunch of open-minded people putting their head in the sand and being like, no, I like it how it is.
I find myself really frequently in conversations with people about the nature of industrial music. No matter what you do within this scene that has that word attached to it, somebody at some point is going to ask you, well, how does this connect to Throbbing Gristle or something like that? The answers to those questions have changed a lot over the last 3 decades, right? And also, it's been more than 3 decades since that answer was easy or clear. One of the reasons that people react so negatively to the more popular forms and things that they see in popular culture is that they want to be able to answer that kind of question clearly. They want to be able to see the clear connection to the more experimental roots of the genre. And I think that there's a mindset, which I don't think is correct, but I think that there's a mindset that I can understand that, pulling too much from popular music disconnects us even more from, those experimental and more underground beginnings.
Sure. And I mean, the reality is just that, like, we're never going to hear like industrial music in a fucking commercial or anything.
We absolutely were hearing industrial music in commercials at some point, in 1995 or whatever, you were hearing, I don't know, Gravity Kills and Machines of Love and Grace and things.
Sure, that's true. Yeah. Yeah. Lots of movie trailers with some Rob Zombie in it. I'll call Rob Zombie industrial. People can at me if they want. Like, I don't give a fuck. That album was produced by Charlie Clouser. Like, come on, get out of here.
More than trailers, though, there was that lengthy period during which, TBT was deeply involved in tons of movie soundtracks. And there's all those sci-fi movies from the mid 1990s are full of stuff. And there was a time period during which things that maybe at the time contemporaries might have thought was the poppier side of things, but we would now definitely reasonably recognize as part of industrial music. Those things were all over the place in the 90s. And it's cool that we are now finally, 30 years later, getting back to that place. And I'm really excited about that. The fact that Three Teeth and Health and bands like that are in movies and all over popular culture is really, really exciting to me. I don't like everything that I hear in popular culture that is connected to this stuff, of course, but I really like that it's there. A few years ago, I was visiting family in Los Angeles, and my little brother told me that he and his friends were going to a show, and he wanted to know if I wanted to come with them. My brother is not involved in industrial music at all, and his friends are mostly in people that he knows from work who are involved in finance industry stuff or whatever. And I asked him what the show was, and the show was Health.
Oh,
and this was like, and this must have been 2016, somewhere in there. It was right around the time that Health had sort of really crossed into the industrial scene, but they were also at the same time really crossing into sort of the popular public consciousness through their work at games and through whatever else they were.
Yeah, I was going to say Max Payne was around that time, maybe.
Yep. Max Payne was before that, but
okay.
But yeah, and anyway, that was an amazing time. Like, I got to go watch what, in my mind, is definitely an industrial band, and in fact, is probably the single largest influence on my most recent track. And I got to go watch it with a huge crowd of people who were all into it. And that crowd included people that I was never going to see at like a Decoded Feedback show or something like that.
Sure. Like,
the reason that I thought of that first is I picked up this album by Dancing Plague the other day, which is excellent, by the way. They're going to be here in San Francisco at the Substance Festival in October, which I'm pretty excited about. And I was listening to it.
Substance Festival.
Yeah, and I was like, it's giving me a vibe, and I can't quite put my finger on it. I realized it felt to me a little bit like some of the Decoded Feedback stuff that really like pulled a much more melodic take on that electro-industrial thing. And so I felt like it was a really cool 90s vibe on this thing. So
nice. Yeah, I'm into that. I did like Decoded Feedback a lot. Phoenix, that's the name of the track. Amazing. But Dancing Plague, I do want to see Dancing Plague. I am looking up this Substance Festival because I am not so far. I'm only in Sacramento. This lineup is amazing. I can definitely go to that. I will see you there.
The 2-day tickets are sold out, but last I checked, you could still get a ticket for each individual day. Also, Substance Festival is run in part by Brian Tarney from Sacred Skin, who are another one of my favorite bands right now.
I did catch them when they played Roseville, opening for Health. I had a great time. Really enjoyed what I heard. Great performance and fun music. And I don't use that disparagingly. Like, I fucking like fun music. It was great. I had a good time with it.
They're an LA band, but they've got deep San Francisco Bay Area roots because both of the Brians, Brian Demeritus and Brian Tarney, are San Francisco people who moved to LA. And I always love seeing them. They were one of my favorite finds of the pandemic period. So I will go travel to see that band. So I'm very excited to be seeing them on Halloween.
Yeah, for sure. Oh shit, that's Halloween. Yeah, awesome.
Yep.
This looks like a great lineup. Not only Contra Void and Dancing Plague and Sacred Skin, Plague Plague as well, which I always feel like I'm saying wrong. Ritual Howls, I would be super excited to see as well. Patriarchy, Black Marble. This is a great lineup. Awesome. I will see you there. Is there anything else that you're sort of super jazzed about as far as not just for other bands or people, but yourself? What is next on the horizon for you?
Well, I just got back from, in fact, so I saw you at Mechanismus where I was playing with Caustic, right? So it's been a real crazy couple of months. I left Mechanismus and then immediately went down to LA to record the single, Nadir. And then the day after I got out of the studio, I was heading out to Calgary for Terminus Festival to play with Glass Apple Bonsai. I got back from that, and then I was only back for a couple days before I had to haul out to the UK to do the UK tour with Ayria and Inertia. So what's next? Well, there's some Glass Apple Bonsai shows coming up. I do not think they're announced yet, so I don't know how confirmed they are, so I don't want to say when and where those are. As I mentioned earlier, the recent work sort of started with Jim asking me to do a song for, for the upcoming Electronic Saviors. So that's definitely the next recorded thing that I'm going to be working on.
Gotcha.
And we have sort of a medium-term plan for the band, and nothing is set in stone yet, although I've discussed this with Jim and he's into the idea. But, I was having a real hard time getting an album written because writing an album is really intimidating. And I realized that it is not intimidating to write an individual song. And in the current environment, it's possible to just go release an individual song. And so the current plan is we're going to do a few more of these, probably in a similar format. I'll get some more of my favorite current bands to do remixes. I definitely have some people in mind, and I might work with Mattia for the rest of them. I might do some of them with him, some with some other people. We'll see how it goes. But, we're going to do a few more singles one way or the other. And the plan is to then do a sort of, not exactly a best of, but summary, where we're going to feature the new singles in one package with some of the songs that we've released previously that we really like. So, the big obvious singles like I've sold your organs on the black market to finance the purchase of a used minivan. The Iron Fist of Just Destruction, those are probably our two biggest quote-unquote hits for some values of hits. But then I'm going to go back and take some songs, like there's a song on the first EP called I Will Harness the Powers of Darkness to Destroy You, where the production didn't age that well, and I still really like the song. And the way that we have been playing it live since 2012 or so is a lot different than the only recorded version that there is. So I want to take that and totally redo it. There are songs all throughout our catalog that are like that, where maybe they were on some weird obscure thing, or they just aged funny and I feel like we've altered them live or something. We want to do alternate versions of them. There's a structural problem with the song When the Sky Rips in Two, You Are Free from our last album that has been bugging me for 10 years now. And I'm like, it's my song. I can just go fix it.
Yeah.
Nothing's stopping me. So the hope is to put out a really, hopefully with deluxe packaging and all sorts of fancy bells and whistles, a nice full summary of the band that'll be, if you only ever buy one thing by us, this is the thing to buy. But also, if you've been a long time listener, there's tons of new stuff to get and tons of reason to have it. And, that's the plan. Originally, I was saying that was going to close out the band, but the single's been doing really well. I've been having a lot of energy around it, and so I'm no longer really thinking of it that way. I think it'll at least be a good bridge into whatever we do next.
Sure.
The next stuff we do will not sound a whole lot like the last album. The last album, Black Out the Sun, about my discovery of chiptune and getting really involved in that scene. And that stuff's great, but it's not really where I'm at right now. I haven't really been going to a lot of chiptune shows. I go to some, but I'm not as suddenly like, oh my God, I can put a Nintendo in everything. Like, that's not where my energy is right now. So, the next stuff will definitely sound different from that and probably sound more like I've been listening to all of this new stuff that we've been discussing.
Right.
So,
gotcha.
Yeah, this will hopefully serve to bridge that gap to an extent.
Understandable. That sounds pleasant. And yeah, chiptune stuff is like fun for a bit. I like some of it.
Yeah, there are albums from that genre that I deeply, deeply love and that I will still listen to all the way through at any time. And some of them are super poppy, like Anamataguchi, and some of them are super weird, like Corn Beast or Glowmag and things like that. I definitely understand people who feel like, hey, I can listen to this for like 5 minutes and I'm kind of done.
Same. But I mean, there's a lot of genres I feel that way about, like, and even then 5 minutes is pushing it with some things before I want to tap out. Well, so that is sort of the short to medium term, I guess, is like doing this thing. Yeah. What does the long-term Gottesman look like? Gottesman. Yep.
I gotta come up with like a weirder and more confusing pronunciation.
Yeah, you do. I was trying to, but I got nothing else beyond just like what's there, and that's
It's pronounced Eric Cardboard Box. Everything is silent.
It's all silent.
That's a good question. A thing that I've been saying a lot lately, especially, and it was a thing that came up a lot when we did the full U.S. tour with Ayria last year, was I didn't really expect to be doing this anymore at this age. I'm in my 40s, and I sort of thought that I was going to be done by now. The fact that I'm not, I want to make sure that I'm not doing things that are not fun because I am old and out of it. And when I say fun, I mean fun for an audience. I really never want to be in a position where I'm asking people to listen to my music or asking people to come to my shows if they don't already want to listen to the music or come to the shows at this point. And, as we get older, it is hard when you're older to stay involved with new music. I applaud anybody who's anywhere close to my age that is still going out and discovering new music and going to shows on the regular. It is hard. And it is nearly impossible to ever find anything that you're going to connect with as much as the stuff you connected with when you were a teenager. So I want to make sure that, anything that I'm delivering is not something that's just pushing people to do something they don't want to do. But it seems that we do still have an audience. People are happy about the single. That Ayria tour, especially the US tour, well, honestly, all the shows we've played with Ayria have been great. There have been great turnouts in almost every city. The fans are really great. We've had really good conversations. We're meeting people that we like, that we don't already know. I've had great shows with all the bands that I play with, and we haven't had an Everything Goes Cold show in 5 years now. So we'll see how that goes. But my hope is that it still connects with people and that we can continue to do this for a while. In the long term, you'll probably see more from me that are things like the Terminus Isolation tracks that I did with our guitarist, Jamie, over COVID, which were acoustic covers of one song by Frontline and one song by Kite. That's something that I sort of have a long history of doing, like genre-bent renditions of industrial songs that I used to do with the band that I was in, the band that I played in college, which was called Psyclon Nine. And I think I'm probably going to find myself taking on a lot more projects that take less creative energy and are more about sort of digging into the things that I really care about in terms of existing work. I'm sure I'll do a lot more of that because that is always something I've enjoyed doing. And so long term, I think that's probably going to happen. But also, the reason I'm in so many bands, aside from the fact that I'd like to think that I have some technical and musical ability, is that when these opportunities present themselves to me, I almost always say yes if it's a band that I really like. And I love all the bands that I'm in. They're bands that I love to listen to. And so as long as that keeps on happening, I'll probably keep on winding up in more bands. Yeah. So, I've gotten to play with so many of my favorite bands over the years, and it's really an amazing experience every time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because I saw you at Dark Force Fest this year, and I was like, that's Eric Gottesman. And then my brain was like, no, it isn't. So I didn't say anything. Plus, I don't know, we've sort of been in each other's orbit on Facebook for a little while. So it was like, I know who that guy is, but I'm not going to just now's not the time. But when I saw you Mechanismus, I was like, okay, now's the time. And yeah, I caught you at Dark Force Fest playing with somebody, right? It
was Ayria this year.
Yeah. And then I saw you at Mechanismus with Caustic, and what a blast. That was my first time seeing Caustic, and just what a fantastic performance. And man, that Matt Finau really just brings something special to the stage.
Yeah, Caustic is always super, super, super fun to play with. They are some of my favorite people. Even Matt, I guess. We've all been friends for a long time, and every time we get together, it is just an absolute blast.
Yeah, and Mechanismus was such a blast. So many, everybody knows everybody, and if you don't, enough of everybody else that it just feels like a big sort of party that all the cool kids are at, and everybody's getting along. It's pretty great. Well, I don't want to keep you too long, so I will go ahead and put the last question of the podcast to you. Anything like that?
Well, I was in Vancouver last week, and I had lunch with Alex Kennedy from I Die, You Die. So, most of those things that I just really had to get off my chest, he already had to deal with. So,
gotcha.
But I did want to say that I am doing my best to get Everything Goes Cold on some festival lineups for next year. I've been playing at the festivals that have been going on, especially since the pandemic. It really feels like it's a great way to see bands because you can, it draws in people from a large region. You see a lot of bands all at once. And it just seems like it's more practical for so many bands than touring right now. And that's definitely the case for us. I'm trying to get us on to at least a few of the festivals that I really enjoy going to. But there's also a bunch of really cool regional festivals that I haven't gone to just because, I don't know, I haven't been there. There's some good ones in There's one in Detroit that looks really great. There's a couple in Florida and all over the country that I haven't gotten a chance to check out. So if you have a regional festival that you would like to see us at, please mention us. We're hoping to get in there. We try to be easy to work with, but we sometimes need that solid gold dressing room. So we'll see how it goes.
Understandable. But that's, and sort of on that note, you and I are both sort of near the Bay Area. I missed the World Goth Day Festival this year. Like Covenant was playing on a decommissioned aircraft carrier. Okay.
I will say that one really great local band played that event. The band that I'm talking about, by the way, is Vague Lanes. And if you have not heard them, you absolutely must check them out. It is Mike Cadu from Gridlock, like that Gridlock. And my friend Badger, who's been in a ton of incredible goth and industrial bands in the Bay Area over the last 30 years. It's Vague Lanes is the band. And I was really frustrated seeing these guys I thought they were not given the slot they should have been. And then I was like, this should be better. So they're going to be back here in, I think, 2 weeks. They're a great band. My friends Ashes Fallen, who you're a Sacramento person, so I'm sure you know them.
Yes.
They played there. That's James, who used to play with me in Deathline International. And his wife, Michelle, and our friend Jason. They're an incredible goth band. And so it's always good to see them.
I caught them not that long ago playing for Boot Blacks in San Francisco, and fantastic performance, great show. Also with Holy Water, who was also really great.
I had just gotten back from Terminus, and I was so fucking tired, and I had just seen Boot Blacks, and I was like, oh God, I can't drag myself out.
Yeah.
The Boot Blacks guys are hilarious. We've got some great pictures of Barrett running around one of our hot dog costumes from Terminus this year. I have not posted to social media yet, but I absolutely love that band. They've got a new single out that is absolutely killer, by the way. It really stretched what I expected from them genre-wise. Is the single?
Yeah.
Really cool shit.
Really fucking great. And what a performance. The live iteration of them is a great thing to witness. Like really great energy, great songs, and the new stuff is got such a great vibe to it. Yeah, I agree. That's a great band. 100%.
Yeah.
Okay, very well. We shall put the last question of the podcast to you. What is something that you have been enjoying recently? And your answer can be anything: book, movie, TV show, your dog, whatever. Just what's something that you've been jazzed about?
I'm a big comics guy, and I read a lot of just big two superhero comics. The 5-year-long Krakoa era of X-Men just ended, and if you were ever looking to get into X-Men comics, go back to the beginning of that, called House of X, Powers of 10. It just ended, but it was 5 years of just some of the best superhero comics ever written. Really, really amazing stuff. The Energon universe, Transformers, and G.I. Joe comics that are coming out right now. The guy who runs my comic shop, Fantastic Comics in Berkeley, shout out to them, suggested it to me, and I don't normally read those books, but they've been really great, really fun, like deep dives into classic characters. They don't feel dated or like it's overly tied to pre-existing lore in a way that makes it not fun.
Right.
So that's what I've been reading. Yeah, it's been really good. Jim Simonic is a huge Transformers guy. He was really involved in the IDW comics. This is a new publisher. It's a totally new thing, but yeah, I'm really enjoying it so far. For video games, I just finished this game called Chained Echoes, which is absolutely incredible. It's a sort of a tribute to classic Super Nintendo era JRPGs. And the whole thing was written by one guy, and it is enormous and sprawling. It took me 1 million hours. I played it on the Switch, but yeah, it's sort of that 16-bit style turn-based JRPG that is just a real joy to play. Great storyline, great mechanics. For music, we've been talking about music this whole time, but I guess the one band that immediately comes to mind that I haven't mentioned is Dark Chisme, who I just saw at Terminus. They were one of the highlights of the whole festival. I had not heard them before. They are brand new. They've been around for less than a year, and they've got one album out. It's fantastic. So definitely listen to them, and definitely listen to the new Gen Cab EP. That is, I'm a huge Gen Cab fan, so that won't be a surprise to anybody that I love that.
Yeah, I agree. Shout out David Dutton. Gen Cabot is great. And he's a great person. If you get a chance to say hello to him, please do so. He's fucking wonderful.
Yeah, he's all right.
Yeah, he's whatever.
Yeah, no, of course, he is a good friend of mine. And I'm hoping, I'm planning to do a lot of sort of collaboration-y kinds of things with Everything Goes Cold in the next year. So he's definitely on my list of people that I'm hoping to do something with, and hopefully that'll work out.
What else you got for me?
I do love my dog, who is not exactly my dog. He's like my ex's dog, who I still go visit all the time.
What is the dog's name?
His name is Hoyt. He's all over my social media whenever I go to see him.
Okay.
So, yeah,
Gotcha.
he's in Sacramento, so you may have seen him.
Oh, excellent. Okay, he lives here as well. I will look him up. I might catch him at the local goth night or something.
Yeah, you might. He's deaf, so he could go to the local goth night and would probably just be happy to see everybody.
Yeah, see, he'd have a great time. Okay.
Yeah, we had a Sweet 16 party for him recently, which was super fun. And,
excellent. Happy birthday, Hoyt. But he won't hear that, though, so
he won't.
You'll just have to tell him for me, I guess.
He's deaf and he doesn't speak English. So
Oh.
It's really a 1-2 punch there with you.
Okay. All right. Well, I always answer the question myself. So the thing I've been enjoying recently, I've been getting ready to go to Wasteland Weekend and putting together costume parts and watching videos about here's how you wasteland up a thing and make it look shitty and not shitty, appropriate, post-apocalyptic and all. So I've been doing a lot of that and I'm pretty fucking excited. I've been aware of Wasteland for forever, like a long time, but it was the thing that I just sort of stopped paying attention to because the assumption was I'll never go to that. But the opportunity has arisen, and this is the year of saying yes to things and vindicating myself for almost dying a couple times. So we're going out and we're doing things while we can. So I'm going.
You almost died a couple of times.
Yeah.
And your response to that is you're going to go to Wasteland Weekend.
Yeah.
An experience that everybody has always described to me as a good opportunity to almost die.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
yeah.
All right.
We're making sure we're alive. Okay. Like that's
that's right.
So I love Mad Max, love music, love this whole thing. I'm so excited, but did find out it is tarantula mating season. I'm mortified of spiders. A lot of first times for a bunch of things. And, we'll see. Good times to be had or the end of Void Signal, one or the other. We'll see.
Well, maybe you'll meet a very nice tarantula and and one thing will lead to another. And then you have like really freaky half tarantula kids.
That's true. There's also desert tortoises out there, but you're not supposed to fuck with those. Like you got to report because they're endangered and shit. So. Oh,
yeah. We shouldn't fuck the tarantulas either. But I mean, I'm what am I, a cop? Like, go for it.
What am I, a cop? I mean, it's the desert. Like, what happens in the desert during tarantula mating season stays in the desert. Music-wise, I rediscovered my love for Zeal and Ardor recently. Amazing band. If you've not heard them, just such a great mix. I mean, outside the genre, like not the usual flavor, but a great mix of Southern African-American sort of slave songs mixed with metal and a satanic sort of a coat of paint slapped over all of it. The album Stranger Fruit is fucking fantastic. Amazing band. Worth looking up. The other thing aside from that, Mortal Realm. I've been enjoying that a lot. Adam Jones. I love that guy.
Adam's great.
I've been eyeballing that Space Marine 2 game, and that looks real cool, but we're a little busy right now, so we'll wait for a sale on that, I think.
Yeah, my game backlog is horrifying.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to avoid getting excited about anything new.
Yeah, same. I'm stuck in that mode of like, oh, wait, because everything new and shiny takes up time that I could be spent doing productive things or whatever. Okay, that is it. Thank you so much for your time, for making this work, coming in and having a chat.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, much appreciated. Void Signal intro, courtesy of Processor. Visit processor2.bandcamp.com for more Processor. Special remix for this episode by Mortal Realm. Visit mortalrealm.bandcamp.com for more Mortal Realm. And catch Mortal Realm at Mechanismus Festival 2025.